شهر میرم.
محمد جمع کنیم بریم.
نه نمیشه. کسی برش داشته.
کی برش داشته؟ هیچ کی برش نداشته. جز من و تو هم هیچ کی توی این خونه نیست.
دیگه از شرشون در امان نیستیم.
چون که اونا دارن میان.
I loved Under the Shadow. I mean, I think I pointed it out to you. I remember after I watched it, I think I talked to you about it. I said, yeah, make time for it. It's a very solid movie. There's lots of good things to be said about it. I do parallel it a little bit with the Babadook this decade in that it's got this really strong mother-child relationship, and they get isolated on the precipice of a tragedy, and they have to defend themselves from a supernatural entity, which is largely a metaphor for perhaps something else. I think loneliness, again, is a big component here. But what I love about the, quote, escalation of the movie is that it's a slow taking away of things. Originally, when we meet our character, she's got her husband with her, and she's got this community around her. And even though it's wartime and the city's regularly being hit with bombs, like, everybody knows where to go. There's a alarm that sounds, and we get to see the routine. And every time this routine repeats itself, there are fewer people, and there's bigger empty spaces in the apartment. And they start it pretty low, and this is a true thing about apartment buildings. I remember my grandparents lived in a high-rise when I was a kid, and I would run around being a brat. And you open the door to the stairwell, and you hear this sort of ghostly, howly wind sound or come out of the elevator shaft. And just this weird compression areas that happen with the airflow in the building, and it happens in all of them. And it's this background sound that's happening in the movie.
There's lots of wind.
And it gets bigger and bigger as the apartment's emptying out, and it slowly starts to become like the entire world is empty except for this woman and her child. We are left with all of these empty rooms and this ghostly howl and this paranoia. Because there is a djinn or some kind of supernatural demonic evil present. And unlike most Western movies, the plot's not worried about all of the neighbors or the local constabularies trying to disprove it. Everyone accepts that it's real. And they get the fuck out of there.
It's in the Quran, so I mean,
And I just love, like, that's just a totally different approach that they take to it, but it's fine. And as we slowly get whittled down to this woman and her little kid completely alone, dealing with the terrifying scenario, and the fact that at one point she's chasing her child outside and she gets stopped by the police to give her hell for not having her hair covered. She is utterly on her fucking own. There is no one she can go to for help. And she is facing off against things that she has no power against at all. She is completely helpless and at the whim to it. And this is what she is set against. And the movie is escalating spookiness, and it comes from a different culture. Obviously, we're not as familiar with it here.
Where it takes place in the Iran-Iraq rebellion.
And her husband's out in the war, and she just abandoned sort of to hold things together as best she can, and it gets worse and it gets worse and it gets worse. And it's just how well modulated the movie is. Like, it's slowly turning the screws. It's patient. It trusts you. It makes things like a blanket moving terrifying. And I'm a big fan. Like, I gave it an honorable mention, but it's like, why isn't it on the list yet again? This whole episode's going to be an echo chamber of that. But if you haven't seen Under the Shadow, and a lot of people haven't, This is my official endorsement.
If you didn't know anything about the movie, this is one of the things I love about it.
Come a little closer, brother.
Oh, sorry. If you didn't know anything about the movie, and I think this is one of the things I love about it, is that it's a war film for really about the first 40 minutes before anything supernatural.
It's sort of the war that brings on the demonic force.
Oh no, it feeds
all
off
of
misery.
the negative energy. Sort of brings
it feeds
out.
off misery, and once it gets an object that is very dear and personal to you, the curse is locked in. I love the fact, and they might have stole this from Repulsion, but I don't care. that giant crack that starts to as her sanity is quickly deteriorating, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger until we find out that's how the jinn are getting in.
A very similar thing is used in a movie called The Canal.
Yep.
Like literally the crack in the wall. I mean.
Yeah. So I love that element, but when the supernatural is ramped up, it's terrifying. Even how the thing with the blankets, where we see it go up the stairs or through the roof.
It's my turn to thank Lee for bringing this movie into my life. And yeah, I think for 2/3 it feels like a drama.
Yep.
With the backdrop, and brilliant backdrop. They, Iraq-Iran war, and with all those like bombing drills, and they're constantly everybody's going down to the basement, but there's also kind of they're a community, but they're also a bit judgmental of each other, and they're worried about kind of there's the creepy kid who got rescued, and just simply because he doesn't talk. Well, he's so traumatized by war, but he's the one who apparently tells the little girl about the demon.
Yep.
And like how all of that builds up. I love the stuff like it talked about the timing of it. The Jane Fonda workout tape.
Yeah.
But there's a little bit of it, like within it. There's the cultural pieces. There's certainly an acknowledgement of, for lack of a better term, the sexism within the culture.
Oh no, it's an underlying tension and part of
all throughout, and the fact that the father says, "Oh, go and live with my family," and she refuses to do that. She chooses. This is her rebellion in some ways.
Yep.
And I mean, like ultimately, what are they trying to do at the end? Trying to get away. I mean, right to the bitter end here. But yeah, when it goes full on horror towards the end, I mean, it's intense. And I've said it more than once here. I feel like I had watched two movies set about a demon set in an apartment building. One, a very Americanized films, Chicago apartment building, and then this one just knocked it out of the park for me. And I'm not sure a fraction of the people will see Under the Shadow that will see Evil Dead Rises.
Right.
This performance, Nargis Rashidi.
Let's say that's right.
Yeah. Brilliant from beginning to end, when she's trying to get back into medical school and is being refused
and
for all these stupid reasons, and how she's giving up her dreams there.
Yep.
All throughout, and then just pure survival as a mother trying to protect her daughter. And another, we keep talking about these, sometimes we end up criticizing these child actors. Another wonderful child performance.
Not a step
and
wrong.
I totally believe her as this little girl, and she loses her lucky, what was it, the stuffed...
It's a teddy bear.
The teddy bear. They spend a great chunk of the movie trying to find.
Well, it's the thing that the djinn latches onto. I mean, it
is. Yeah.
It's told early on when we're first introduced to the idea that this is that a djinn exists. That what starts the curse off, or what makes them eternally cursed, unless they can get it away from it, are these like deeply personal objects. And we know for hers, it's that medical book.
Yeah,
because her father had signed it, and obviously I think it's an elephant actually.
Okay,
I can't remember.
It was
a stuffed toy. And that's the last thing we see of this movie.
Yeah, it's still there.
Yeah,
and it still has the item.
Yeah, but then we have those empty shots.
So even though they've run away, the curse is not over.
No, nothing's defeated.
The
Yeah.
last shots are brilliant. I mean,
Yeah.
the shots of the apartment.
So
and
that's
what's
why
left.
I think it's also very similar. It's a very tragic ending with the Babadook as well. But
Yeah.
But-
No.
Well, and I wanted to bring it back. One of the reasons I brought up the Babadook, I mean, obviously the parental thing, but
yeah,
the Babadook, I think, is pretty implicitly like a metaphor for grief
Yeah.
and dealing with your trauma, and it never fully goes away. You're always going to be nursing this thing, hence her going down into the basement and feeding her Babadook.
yeah.
My question is, and I don't know that I have a clear answer, is if the djinn is a metaphor for something, what is
Yeah.
it? Is it loneliness? Is it oppression? War? All of these?
Yeah. Well, it
Yeah, I
definitely
thought it was war. That was my take on it.
Well,
but
definitely, once again, it feeds off people's grief.
Yeah.
That's where, yeah.
targeting a child, it's interesting, and I don't know if maybe it's a generational trauma of war is being explored here.
Right.
But I know it's not just surface level. Oh, there's a demon after a child, going back to The Exorcist or movies like that. There's a greater purpose in all of this.
It feels like a very personal film.
Yeah. Well, and
I
if the
think
fact
it
that the
must be.
metaphor or whatever isn't obvious is not necessarily a slight against the movie. It could be a strength. But I felt like there was another note being played, and I wonder again if it was like, am I missing something again culturally, or is it just being careful and subtle about it?
Yep.
We are kind of singing its praises. I do.
Oh, yeah, I'm a big
I have
fan.
I have
Yeah.
a few. I try to do this on my show. I try to have a few. If I love a movie,
Say some negative things.
Negative things here. I think it's a little bit of a trope to have kind of the creepy mute child, but I understand why it's in there. It was all a dream. Again, I've really been noting, like, it was all a dream seems to be a regular thing in horror movies. I mean, again, that's whatever, but
Which is not to imply that the movie's all a dream. But
no.
No.
But
There's
there
a
were some
dream.
scenes in there that were dream sequences and were just false leads,
Yeah.
and I start to get a little bit tired of that, just in any movie
Yeah.
in general, even movies I really like. But
There's a scene where she gets out of bed, walks towards the taped window, and stands in front of it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we're about to have a jump scare, and then
and there it is.
we had our
Yeah.
jump scare, and nothing else in the movie had been that sort of telegraphed
Yeah.
before that. But
Yeah.
again, it's a little small complaint.
And the mother's so brilliant through the entire film and how she handles things, but I'm not sure why she opens the door. There's that key moment where she opens the door and she lets the demon in. Was my take on it. Like, why
I
does
think
there's nobody
was
outside there?
She wanted the demon off of her kid and onto her.
Yes, that's what
Like
she's
she
trying
does
to do.
the barter system. She takes the book out, and then all of a sudden the animal ends up in the book ends up in the lockbox.
Yep.
So like she is trying to communicate and barter with this thing in her own limited way, but she seems to have understanding of it that we are not gained access to. And again, maybe if we're familiar with the djinn lore, like maybe there's rules, like the way we inherently understand the rules of werewolves and vampires.
Yeah, that's
there are
true.
rules to dealing with djinns, and you make
Yeah.
offerings to them, or you barter with them
Okay.
to get them to change your mind. And you'd think in wartime, with this much misery going around, there'd be plenty of places for it to go. But
It goes
here's these two vulnerable people alone in this huge building.
Yeah.
Well, let's play.
Yep.
And then, just again, another really picky one, but there's a sequence where the mother and daughter are physically in an altercation, and I don't believe for a moment that the daughter would overpower her mother.
Okay, yeah.
And I don't think she's possessed by the demon at that point. I didn't quite
No.
get how that happened. But these are really nitpicky things. It's a great movie that lots of people should check out.
Yeah. And I mean, it does focus, like, the stress is building along with the suspense. As closer as we're getting to this standoff between the djinn or this demon,
Yep.
she's getting weaker every step of the way, and it's getting stronger every
Yep.
step of the way, and you feel it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's, like, it's felt, not said. That's a hard thing to pull off.
But the daughter's getting weaker too, I think,
Oh, yeah.
as well.
Oh yeah.
So
No, it's sucking away at her.
Yeah.
And again, it's not a feel-good picture necessarily, but it's not devastating either.
No.
There's been a lot of hella dark movies. Like, I think it leaves you in an uncertain place, but it's not the kick in the balls that a lot of this decade.
It's not a happy ending, but it's not. Well, I just think the world is awful.
Yeah. Evil exists,
we're entertained tonight.
and it will continue to exist. So be wary.
Yeah. Evil is AI Hollywood scripts.
That's right.